Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for that introduction. It is great to be here in Portugal. I have been locked down for the last 2 years in my office in Silicon Valley, so to see real humans in front of me is really a fantastic thing. So a very big welcome. Thank you to joining us here in person and for those of you online as well. I'm going to spend about 5 to 10 minutes just walking you through some new research that we've done that looks at the data imperative. We've surveyed a whole bunch of people around the world to get their views and thoughts. We're going to release it next week, so you guys get a sneak preview of that. So I'm Alex Holt. I run KPMG's global technology, media, and telecoms practice, and I'm really, really excited to take you through the research we've got here. And then I'm going to be joined by Sandra from Microsoft. She is one of the executive directors here in Portugal, and she's going to talk us through how Microsoft have gone on their own data journey and how they are supporting customers in the marketplace. All right, let's get going. Now, I'm afraid you've got a relatively small screen here, but hopefully you can see it. It has been an absolutely unprecedented 2 years. You don't need me to tell you this. It's been very difficult and very challenging. One of my big parts of my role is to spend times with CEOs around the world, trying to help them think about the various priorities they've got and the competing things that they need to get done. Right at the top of their agenda over the last 2 years has been accelerating their digital transformations. From ensuring that their employees could get online at home and continue to work for their businesses, to ensuring, obviously, that the customers, where there can be no human contact, could work. It's been a very, very, very difficult time, but digital transformation has been the name of the game. Now, in what I would describe as that rush to survive, we've seen virtual teams, like this group of individuals behind us, sitting at home, working together to accelerate their company's digital transformations. And there have been astonishing achievements through that time. Many of you, I'm sure, have been involved in those transformations. In fact, the CEOs that we speak to have said they've made 2 years of progress in just 2 quarters. You know, it's an incredible, incredible thing. And whilst there's been a lot of attention on the share prices of big tech, I think we will look back at this moment very differently from just whether or not the share prices are up. I think we'll look at this as the start of the 3rd digital decade, just the 3rd. I think we'll look at it as a point in history when the 4th industrial revolution really, really got started. So I think it's an amazing time when you think about how different your working life is, how different your personal life is as a result of that transformation. And the astonishing thing is that over those 2 years, we have now created, in the last 2 years, more data than in the entire history of humankind combined. Just think about that for a minute. That is an awful lot of data. And in that rush to create all of that data, we really feel that that is the opportunity for telecoms, media and technology companies around the world. Because as you're about to see, that treasure trove of data is not actually being utilized. A lot of that data has been created and it's not being used. And that isn't to criticize those incredible teams who've done all those amazing achievements, but I'm afraid there's no time to take a holiday, no time for vacation, no time to put your feet up, because the race is on to utilize that data in the right way. And so for us, we call this the data imperative, getting after that data and utilizing it for your business. And our hypothesis, as we worked with and supported clients through COVID, was they just didn't have time to think about the data that was being created from their new digital architectures. So my belief is that those that act fastest will win. So, to find out more, we interviewed 300 technology, media and telecoms executives from Europe, from ASPAC and the Americas. Of the people we spoke to, 50% were working for businesses that generated more than $1 billion in annual revenue. And we cut off the threshold at 250 million. So these are medium to large and huge organizations. Now, I know this screen is a little small, so maybe challenging for some of you, but let me walk you through some of the headlines. The data point that jumped out to me when I first saw the first cut of this data was this astonishing number. 57% of the organizations we spoke to do not have an enterprise-wide data strategy. Only 23% of those organizations we spoke to had data in an environment where they could use machine learning or artificial intelligence. So I guess then, unsurprisingly, that only 34% are fully utilizing their customer data. And that customer data, that is the treasure trove, that's the gold, that's where the money is. Yet only 34% of these organizations are able to get hold of it. And back to our hypothesis, only 11% were able to think about their data strategy before they went into their digital transformation. Now maybe that just speaks to the unique situation of COVID, or maybe it just says there's a lack of focus on data when you embark on a digital transformation. So simply put, data was a bit of an afterthought. And while we talked about the 57% who don't have a enterprise-wide strategy, we want to dig into that a little bit more. So 44% said they were implementing in a few areas, and well done, it's great progress, but implementing in a few areas is not a comprehensive enterprise-wide data strategy, so it's a good place to start, but it isn't the answer. It's that 29% that you need to look at. They're the ones who are doing it at scale. They're the ones that are going to make this work. But again, 29% is a pretty low percentage for the tech, media and telco clients that we look up to. These are the innovators. These are the ones who are entrepreneurial, driving visions that change all our lives. So is this a case of cobbler's shoes? They're really good at doing stuff for their customers, but maybe not as good for themselves. Either way, that 29%, that's the group to look for. They are in pole position. And next we asked about data maturity. And we asked about data maturity in 3 different areas: monetization, management, and quality. And we gave them a scale and let them plot themselves across it. And you can see at the early stages there's a lot of attention on monetization. And again, back to the customer piece, that makes sense. Why wouldn't you focus on it? But you can see that it becomes much more difficult. And when you get to world class, well, it's a bit depressing, quite frankly. It's really, really low. And again, these are the organizations with the most number of customers and users of any industry in the world. So then we said, okay, well, if that is the situation now, it's not that great. Tell us about where it'll be in 18 months. And in 18 months, you can see things move forward. Again, lots of attention as the maturity cycle starts to improve on the monetization point, but it falls away. And that's because doing monetization at a world-class level is really difficult. So why is this sector, at best, moderately mature, would probably be the best complimentary way to describe it? Well, I think it might be down to investment. And whilst big numbers are thrown at the digital transformations, there is a huge amount to do in terms of investment. And you can see here the numbers that 30% of the people we spoke to are only investing between 10 and 30 million. So a big opportunity to move forward. So just moving forward before we introduce Sandra to the stage, a bit more upbeat perhaps, because what we said is if you had more money and you could invest it, what would you get from it? And this is the good bit. So a really optimistic outlook on the life with more data. The first thing was this 75% radical change to the business model. So to bring that to life, that would be, say, you're doing product today and you want to move to subscription in the future. Data is a key enabler of that. 72% said it would improve their enterprise connectivity, connectedness. So trying to ensure that the front, middle, and back office are talking to each other. So for example, if you're a telco and you want to launch a new product or pricing plan, unfortunately, the marketing and sales team can't just press go and it all happens. All the data needs to flow, from thinking about pricing, financials, to investment in network, to the capacity management. All of this needs to come together, and data is key to it. 71% felt that it would improve their overall revenue performance. And again, using data to predict exactly what customers really wanted, better able to serve them, better able to use data to be predictive, to nudge behavior to get them further forward. 68% said it would address operational dysfunction. Have you ever been in a business with your own people where everyone has the same data, except it all says different things? That's kind of where you are. So can you get to a single version of the truth within an organization? And that addresses some of the dysfunction that goes on around decision making. And then finally, the return on investment on capital projects. Data is absolutely critical to allowing you to run multiple scenarios on the same investment, so you can figure out how much money to put in it and what the recommendation is for the best decision on where to put your money. So, as I start to close this out and get ready for a really interesting conversation here, let me tell you what we think you should do. What is your data imperative? Well, first of all, the race is on, okay? As I said, unfortunately, no time to enjoy Lisbon over the weekend. You need to get back to work, get hold of that data, and start thinking about what you can do with it. Massive investment is needed if we're going to really utilize all that data that's been created. More data than in the entire humankind of history has been created in the last 2 years. So really need to get hold of and invest in it. And that's about strong business cases to justify the investment, which means having your data strategy at the heart of your digital transformation strategy. If that comes together, your business case will be stronger, you'll attract more investment, and you'll be able to get after it. If you're going to make that big investment, your operating model and your culture needs to change. Just dropping a load of data into your colleagues' inboxes and allowing them to get access to it isn't enough. You may need to change the way the business is structured. You'll certainly need to upskill and train your colleagues, and you'll certainly need to change the culture of decision making so that data can be fully utilized. And finally, we would absolutely advocate for focusing on customers. If you're doing data investments and it isn't benefiting your customers, go and find something else, because everything can affect customers, and if it isn't, you should be focusing on something else. So our thoughts on this are, as you look into 2022, think about trying to drive 10% incremental revenue from the data insights that you're getting on your business. 10% might seem low, it might seem really ambitious. I think if we look across the sector and think about where we are from a maturity standpoint, I think that's a pretty lofty goal, actually, pretty hard thing to do. So that's about looking at your budget for the year ahead and saying, I'll find 10% uplift from using my data in a better way. Okay, hopefully you found that interesting. We've done a very, very quick run through. We'll be launching that research next week. But let me now introduce Sandra from Microsoft. She's an executive director in the Portuguese business, and she is going to come and talk to us a little bit about the results here and what Microsoft are doing. Should we take a seat?
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone. Nice to be here. So, Alex, I'm going to start by saying, and thanking you for the invitation, that Microsoft actually ticks all the boxes that you had there on your data imperative. So we've been doing this journey for a while now, and let me tell you that yes, we use it as a competitive differentiator. Yes, we do target revenue based on data insights. Yes, okay. We did change enormously our culture and our organization. So corroborating your survey there.
Yeah. Well, look, why don't you tell us a little bit about, obviously we know Microsoft can do many things for many enterprises around the world, but you've gone on your own data journey as an organization. And I think it's always interesting to hear from the big tech companies about what they do for themselves, because our survey suggests that some of the sector are not that good at actually eating their own dog food. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what Microsoft have been doing?
Okay, so starting up, if you go back to 2014, Satya Nadella, our CEO, had an interview and he said something like, we need to deeply ingrain in the fabric of the company a culture that thrives on data. From there, many hashtags thrive on data appeared in Microsoft, but honestly, nobody could materialize what we are today. We just knew that we were going to materialize a different way of working, and that's basically three things. New ways of working, meaning centering around data, all roles, from HR to finance to product to engineering, all roles. So the decision making starts to be centering around data. Number two is you need to change the processes. That implied changing processes in which Microsoft was built. All processes, because they weren't fundamentally centered on data. And last but not least, creating a culture of experimentation, meaning we needed to experiment and learn from failure. We call it fail fast. But by experimenting, we knew we would fail. But we need to learn from that failure and have better decisions afterwards. That implied a number of things. Every single role at Microsoft has in its function to capture and use data insights for their decision making. It doesn't matter in which scale you are or which role you represent or you execute. You center your decisions and you base your decisions on data. Then you do all the human added value that we do on top of the machines, because we do. And that's invaluable, but you do center on data. And the second one, sorry, Alex, is you do revolve from examples from product decisions, finance operations, workforce management, HR recruiting targets, everything, even employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, all processes rely on data.
And this is more than just an Excel spreadsheet, right? Because one of the things I was struck by was how few organizations can use AI and ML tools. So is this saying that as people have gone through COVID, they've rushed to get onto the cloud, but they've not actually put it in an environment where they can use the tools? What's your take on that?
Yes, spot on. We all say, right, that we saw 2 years of digital transformation crammed into 2 months in the first stages of COVID. But it was by need, very hurried. There is a big decision for all companies to make, which is, do we go back or do we try to capture a bit of what we did or what we were like, or do we take advantage of this speed up because it was an exponential velocity that we all had to make in 2 months to actually grow from there? Because you cannot do a culture that thrives on data using Excel. And yes, if you ask me, I'm fond of Excel. I think it's one of the best tools ever. But Excel is not enough. So it's about culture, it's about processes, it's about people. The technology is here, way beyond Excel. Excel, great job, but way beyond Excel. But it's more than technology, much more.
And so we're seeing this situation, I think, across the piece where this enormous effort has gone into the last 2 years. And I feel like, not everywhere, but people are taking a bit of a sigh of relief and go, oh my God, we've got through it, the business is still surviving, our people are healthy. But actually, when you look at it, all this data is kind of like, I mean, I described it as a stranded asset. And I think to your point, there's a bit of indecision about where do organizations go next? What would your advice be to those organizations that have survived? They've got their data in the cloud now, but perhaps they're not using it in the right way. What can they do tomorrow? What can they do next month to help move the business forward?
That's a great question, Alex. First, we are in the middle of a data overload. So even if companies put their data in the cloud, great move, that is not enough. We are swamped by data. Us as people, we are swamped by emails, by posts trending on social networks. Imagine companies. So us, our individuals, we are swamped. Imagine companies. So companies are swamped by data. They are overloaded. So this is really not about big data anymore. The data is big everywhere you look at it. There was a statistics in the World Economic Forum last year that said that in 2020 we had 40 times more the number of bytes of data than we had stars in the observable universe.
Wow.
40 times in 2020, and the estimates for 2025 are huge. So it's not about big data, Alex, it's about smart data. It's about defining the questions that you want to get answered and using the right data to capture the insights. So accelerate insights, triage data. It's an intelligent-driven organization, is not a data-driven organization. I think the speed up that we saw these last 2 years is about putting more intelligence and more insights, not about putting more data. More data is going to come naturally.
Yeah. And we're nearly out of time here, but maybe just one last bit on the kind of cultural change that you described in Microsoft in terms of decision-making, that people don't make decisions unless it's supported by data. And I think we're seeing that from some of the biggest tech giants. But actually, it's really, really hard to do. And I guess not only is it hard to get the insights, but it's hard to actually change behavior so that they're being used in the right way. Any advice here on that kind of cultural and people change aspect?
It's about being able to unlearn.
Right.
Insights are not fixed mindset data. Insights are valid on certain contexts, and data changes, reality changes, insight changes. So that means it's about the capability that each one of us and the organization as a whole has to unlearn previous insights, learn from data, and capture better insights for better decisions. So learn, unlearn, skilling, and just fail fast.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we have a clock ticking at us right here, so I'm afraid we are out of time. As I said, we'll be launching the research next week. Please do look out for that. And please join me in thanking Sandra for joining us here today.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you all.
Thank you.